Hello. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favourite comedy shows of all time, Father Ted. It gives off a similar vibe to the IT Crowd, but would I say it's better than that? Possibly. I mean, it's written by the same guy, Graham Linehan, and they are kind of at the same level. But whilst the IT Crowd has very few bad episodes, Father Ted has literally none. Even the worst episode of this entire show is still very much enjoyable. And this list was pretty hard to make because I love all the episodes of Father Ted. So anyway, we'll be counting down the top 10 best episodes of Father Ted. Number 10 is Kicking Bishop Brown Up the Arse, which is the second half to the only two-parter in the whole show. First half being Escape from Victory, and he finds out that for a forfeit he has to kick Bishop Brennan up the arse, and the whole episode you're wondering, is he going to do it, is he not going to do it? But it is so funny when he does do it, because Bishop Brennan has some kind of blank expression on his face. He's completely in shock. It also gives us one of my favourite one-time characters, Father Jessup, the sarcastic priest. And yeah, even like the ending is pretty amazing, how he thinks he's got away with it, and then you just see the picture of Ted kicking him, and instead of like sending him to like another parish, which you'd expect when sent with some kind of weird tribe, instead just kicks him back. Number 9 is Think Fast, Father Ted. But they've got a leak in the roof, and then the parish sends them a car, but then due to accidentally hitting a fella on the bike, Ted wants to try and fix the car using a hammer and ends up wrecking the whole thing. So they borrow the other car from the dancer priest, but then their plan to get the car back is absolutely ingenious. How they organise the raffle so that they win it, and it's just so funny how they don't get caught, and just then they've got the Father Billy O'Dwyer, the Spin Master, who only plays one tune, that being Ghost Town by the Specials, and then they have like number 11, and then Dougal just completely forgets, and even they said at the beginning, like, oh, the last time we were at raffle, the people organising actually won it, so it's not that unusual for that to happen. And at the ending, they kind of get their just desserts when the Spin Master Billy O'Dwyer steals the money. Then even like Dougal points out, and I just love the way how Ted tries to explain to Dougal why they're doing it, and how he justifies how they're kind of cheating. Number 8 is Speed 3. Now, I should point out, I haven't actually seen Speed, but yeah, I'm completely aware of how it's like a parody of the film. It's the same kind of concept, but unlike most episodes, this one's actually got quite high stakes, and there's a life or death actual issue. I like the beginning how they get Pat Mustard sacked, and yeah, this is one of the few episodes where they actually got a villain, and he was a pretty good villain, I think. And then how they have to try and save Dougal from the milk float. And the solution they have is saying mass. So, I mean, whilst there is a sort of sense of dread throughout the episode, there's so much sort of humour throughout it, and it's kind of, I love this kind of whole frustrating comedy of how it's both mild peril and major peril at the same time. And yeah, in the end, Pat Mustard gets his just desserts when the bomb actually goes towards him at the end. It's just, and when Dougal starts being the new milkman, and how he doesn't suspect a thing, that is just brilliant, of how you just see the peak of Dougal's sort of childlike innocence, and it's just brilliant. Number 7 is the Mainland. And I like how this episode's got like 3 different narratives all at once. I especially love the whole "I don't believe it" scene with Richard Wilson. And also, I want to give credit to him for like, appearing in this episode, and he was like a really good sport, because I imagine people must say that to him all the time. Although I should put on, I've never actually seen One Foot in the Grave, and I'd say now, I mean, Father Ted is probably more well known than One Foot in the Grave, but it's really funny, the running joke of how he keeps on getting like really pissed off at people saying "I don't believe it" until the end, when, you know, he actually says it. And, you know, the other sort of subplots are like how Father Jack like loses his glasses, and then he ends up going to this sort of Alcoholics Anonymous, and then at the end he's like goes to the bar, goes drink, drink, drink. And you don't see him attacking the other guy, but it's so well implied, the comedic timing of when like you see an ambulance arriving, and then how Mrs. Doyle and her friend like fighting over who pays the check. But anyway, when they go into the dark cave, I find that bit's really funny, of when they bump into Father Noel Furlong, and then they just leave him there. But then also, the ending is actually pretty amazing. It's kind of frustrating how he's got the money, but he doesn't want to spend his winnings on releasing Mrs. Doyle and Father Jack. But then Dougal, who's pointing out, Ted, it's like, shut up, Dougal, shut up, Dougal. And then, so it's just, his flies are undone, but just all round, there's just so many amazing, hilarious moments from this episode. Number 6 is Are You Alright There, Father Ted? Now, this episode has aged surprisingly well about, you know, for a show, you know, in the 90s about, like, racism, because Ted isn't saying anything especially bad about the Chinese, but, you know, he's just making fun of them, and then the whole town thinks, well, not the town, Ireland, think that he's a racist, and then it's, you know, he gives us one of the most well-known scenes in the entire show, when he's caught, like, doing the eyes, and he's got the lampshade as a hat. And then, I also love how, you know, he tries to sort of prove he's not racist by doing the whole kind of diversity thing, celebrating diversity on Craggy Island. And then, at the end, he finds out that his, you know, friend who died has given him all of his Nazi memorabilia. Then everyone sees it. I think it's just, not only is it a really funny episode, I think it's also very topical, and it was quite brave of them to, you know, do like an episode on this slightly controversial topic. I mean, completely understand if someone was offended by this episode, but I love it. I think it's just really funny and cleverly done. Number 5 is And God Created Women, which is one of the few instances in media where a priest having a crush, which isn't really meant to happen, isn't portrayed as being, like, weird and creepy. Ted is portrayed as being very sort of socially awkward and relatable in so many ways. I love the beginning scene of when he keeps on bumping into Polly Clark at, you know, awkward, really awkward places, like even when they're in the cars are next to each other, he's like, please change. And then suddenly, she's in his house. But then I think the real bit when Ted becomes quite relatable is when he's trying to impress her by pretending to know all about these books. The book of Crime and Punishment. Like, oh well, I think towards the end it's kind of, wait a little, when they stopped talking about the crime and started talking about the punishment. I gave up on doing the accent halfway through saying that. But anyway, even at the end, it's kind of very frustrating how Ted realises he has to say mass, but he wants to go and meet Polly in the cottage, so he just has to rush it, and the nuns are all highly disappointed. But then when he arrives at the cottage, it's not what you'd expect. When he says that he knows that she's made the right decision, and she says she's going to become a nun, you can just feel Ted's frustration so well. He's like, frickin' brilliant. And only then does he decide to actually admit that his surname is actually Crilly and not curly. It's hilarious, awkward, embarrassing, and just all-round brilliant episode. Number 4 is The Passion of Centibus. Now, I love Bishop Brennan. I think he's a legend, but I think this is him at his very best of how Dougal at the beginning is just like, "How's the son?" "What? The son of God?" And how, it is clear that he doesn't want to be there, and he does not like Ted or Dougal. And it just shows like the stakes of this episode of how he's probably going to send them to some other parish, and how I love how they sort of accidentally make the film like one of the most popular there, and Jack is actually watching the film. 2 syllables because Irish. Anyway, it gives us one of the best lines in the entire show. "Down with this sort of thing, careful now. Down with this sort of thing, careful now." And it's so obvious how Ted and Dougal aren't really that bothered by the film, but also I love the ending. It's very clever how, even though at the beginning, Father Hernandez gives them a video player, well, 90s, obviously it's a video player, and a fertility symbol. You really shouldn't have. You really shouldn't have. And they both are important to the story of how, Bishop Brennan, they make a bad first impression of Bishop Brennan when he sees the fertility symbol. At the end, what happens at the end, they know how they can sort of bargain with him because they've got the video of him with his son in America. And I love also they don't talk down to the audience. They don't say what the plan is. It's just very obvious what they're going to do. It's like, should we read the phone call now, or should we watch it again? And even Dougal knows what it is, and it's just really good. Number 3 is cigarettes, alcohol, and rollerblading. And I think it's really funny how we've never seen Dougal doing rollerblading before or after this episode, but it's just such a brilliant sort of one-time joke. And the motivations of how they want to beat Dick Byrne in the Giving Things Up competition. And I also love the way how they sort of show they visualise their addictions by showing a giant cigarette, a pint of Guinness, and a giant roller skate. It's just so funny throughout the entire episode. I think one of the best bits is when you see Father Jack become sober and he starts talking, well, not normally, but but just in a sober way, and how he just doesn't understand what's going on. I also love Sister Assumpta, the nun, of how Dougal only remembers her after you're wearing a blue jumper. Ah, Sister Assumpta! And then I also love the whole the scene with the nuns and how they're they're phoning them down. Ave Maria. Yeah, brilliant episode. Number 2 is A Christmassy Ted. So the Christmas special of the show, and this contains some of my favourite scenes from the show, especially the one when there's 8 priests are stuck in the lingerie section, the women's laundry section of the shop, and then they try and escape some kind of Mission Impossible style, and then what they do is they find a person with the most boring voice, "That would be me, Ted. I have an awful, monotonous, dreary voice." Which is just I love that. His voice is so sort of funny sounding. And then it also introduces us to a mysterious character, Father Todd Unctious, and I think it's hilarious how Mrs. Doyle tries to guess his name and eventually gets to Todd Unctious. so many hilarious scenes in this, especially at the beginning when the Christmas lights turning on and off, and Dougal thinks they're broken. It's like, ah, Ted, that's perfect. Oh no, they're gone again. Oh no, they're back. That's it, Ted, and all that. And then when Ted is doing his speech, and he's just like pissing everyone off, and people are just bored and go away. The scene where they're watching Mass in Latin. Yeah, so it's such a funny episode. Although not awfully Christmassy. It's set at Christmas, but most of the theme of it isn't Christmas based, which I think is fine. Before we get to number one, here are a few honourable mentions. Now, honestly, I'd like to name pretty much every episode, but as there are only 25 episodes of Father Ted, I'm going to round it down to just 3. They are A Song for Europe, The Old Grey Whistle Theft, and Night of the Nearly Dead. And the number 1 best episode of Father Ted is Hell. Obviously, what else could it be? This episode has some of the greatest lines and greatest character moments. Of the beginning of when they're trying to figure out, like, July the 19th, maybe they're striking this important somehow. Wouldn't know, Ted, you big bollocks. And referencing the Roddy Doyle books. And then when they get to the caravan, it's kind of relatable when you're in like a holiday in a boring location. They're just trying to think of things to do, and they visit St. Kevin's Stump, and they play hide and seek in the caravan. And also it gives us, I would say, could be the funniest line in the history of comedy of, these are small, but the ones out there are far away. Which is awesome. Also gives us one of the few supernatural moments from the show when Father Jack is being taken back up the road. They're amazing moments. It's the first appearance of Father Larry Duff when they phone him and his car falls off the cliff, which, you know, is one of the best recurring characters in the show. Also Tom at the end of how he's spraying Dougal and Ted with the mud. When they keep on bumping into the same couple throughout, and then he wrecks their car, and it's just so brilliant how they realise how this holiday is going to be really shit, of how they forget everything, and it turns out they're not in the luxurious caravan, they're in the tiny one. Just imagine the guy's surprise when he comes out of the shower and finds 3 priests sitting in his living room. Oh, honestly, I could talk about this episode for ages and ages, but I say just you gotta watch it. And also, there's Father Noel Furlong is also being like sort of annoying, but then I love how you can kind of feel Ted's frustration of how it's kind of relatable. How like when you're on some kind of I've been on like a scout camp or just partying with friends or something where you just want to go to sleep and everyone else just wants to just sing all night. But all of those reasons are why I would say Hell is the number 1 best episode of Father Ted, and I'd highly recommend for anyone who's not seen Father Ted, just watch it. It is so hilarious. And that is it, really. Bye bye.